About a week ago, I was so unbelievably excited for Donkey Kong Bonanza, and that got me thinking about all of the other 3D platformers that I adore from Nintendo, most of them, of course, being from the Mario series. So I decided, in anticipation of Donkey Kong Bonanza, to release a series of polls in which you would all participate, and I would be able to use those results for this video. I decided I am going to rank every single Mario game myself, but first, let me tell you exactly what your results were. The very first Mario games are 64 Sunshine, 64 DS, and Super Mario Galaxy. Now, I was pretty certain that Mario Galaxy would be the winner, and it was, by a very, very clear margin. Super Mario Galaxy, of these four, turned out to be the best. Of over 408 people voting, which is the most votes we've ever gotten in a poll, thank you so much for participating. Super Mario Galaxy won at 59%. In second place came Super Mario 64 with 22%, and Super Mario Sunshine with 14%. Then 5% of you said Super Mario 64 DS was the best of those four. Then, moving on to part 2 here, we have Super Mario Galaxy 2, Super Mario 3D Land, Mario Odyssey, and Super Mario 3D World, plus Bowser's Fury, and I decided to include that as a one big package because if I had only included the 3D World from the Wii U version, it's pretty much excluding every single thing that makes it better on the Switch version, because obviously the Nintendo Switch version is much, much better than the Wii U version, plus you get Bowser's Fury thrown in there, and Nintendo did not give that game its own physical release or a standalone release at any time, at any capacity. This game is not its own game. It is a simple, different mode in 3D World. It's not its own thing. But regardless, this was a lot closer than I had initially anticipated. Super Mario Galaxy 2 got 33% of the votes. Of the 400 of you that did vote, Super Mario Odyssey came in first place with 55%. Now that is very, very close. I did not think those two were going to be as close as they were, but people adore Super Mario Galaxy 2. Then of course 3D Land only got 3% of the vote, which was pretty funny to think that Super Mario 64 DS got more votes than 3D Land did, but I digress there, I suppose. And then Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury with a very small 10%. I would have thought that was a little bit of a higher number, but I understand the idea behind it. But seeing how close those results were, I did not at all expect Super Mario Galaxy 2 to be that close to Super Mario Odyssey. I really thought it was going to just blow itself out of the water there, but it didn't. And so normally what I would do is take those polls, take those two winners from those two polls, and then pit those two together. And I just decided, you know what, let's go ahead and put the first place and second place winner of both to make it a big final poll, because sometimes, you know what, people will vote and then they will not know what to do with one game versus another. So I figured, you know what, let's go ahead and put them all together. So here we are with the final poll. What did you guys select? You guys said Super Mario Odyssey is the best 3D Mario game with 44%, the lowest margin of victory yet. And Super Mario Galaxy came in second place at 30%. And to my shock, Super Mario 64 came in 14%, and Super Mario Galaxy 2 came at 11%. For Galaxy 2 to have been such a juggernaut against Super Mario Odyssey, I truly expected it to have way more votes, and I honestly did think that people were going to say Galaxy 2 was better than Mario Galaxy, but they did not, and it ended up being the fourth place game. So by a pretty wide margin, you guys decided, you know what? Super Mario Odyssey is the best 3D Mario game. Now sure, it was very slim compared to some of the other winners in the other polls, but it was still a pretty solid victory for Super Mario Odyssey. Now what will I decide? Well, first of all, let's go through each game one at a time, starting off with Super Mario 64. Now, first of all, there is no such thing as an F-tier Mario game, so I am not putting any of these games in F-tier. It will be going S-tier, A-tier, B-tier, C-tier, and then D-tier as the bottom. Mario 64, I am going to place in B tier. Now, Mario 64 is a fine game. It is a perfectly fine game, and it is the first 3D platformer pretty much of all time. There was another one I think that came out before it, but this was the one that truly changed everything. 3D environments were such a weird concept, a phenomenon that no one had really considered before, and it changed gaming forever because moving in a 3D environment, moving with your character in all directions rather than just two is incredible. Going up and down in vertical levels, in 2D levels, can be pretty fun. Going left to right can be pretty fun, but those obviously have their limitations. The 3D environment really takes all of the ceiling, all of the limitations off of your game design. And Mario 64 is still beloved to this very day. People will say it's the best Mario game ever. People will say it's their favorite Mario game, and a lot of that could be nostalgia, but I am not going to sit here and say it is all just nostalgia. It is a perfectly designed game, and it is so much fun to play even now. My very first experience with this game was Super Mario 64 DS, and so I was able to play it on hardware with graphics that were a little bit more accessible to me at the time for someone born past the year 2000. Super Mario 64 was so much fun on the DS. I loved playing as the different characters. I loved playing and unlocking all of them, defeating all of the bosses, going through these levels, and then eventually later on, when I saw the actual original game, my mind was blown. I couldn't believe how different it looked, and honestly, it looked better to me because the graphical style for the DS was fun, and it was what I was kind of used to at the time from the New Soup series and all of that, but it was so different that it caught my eye in a way that I had never expected. Because typically older games with bad graphics don't catch my eye, but something about this game and its style really captivated me, and I have seen so many videos of people talking about it over the years, playing it over the years, that I truly wanted to get my hands on it. And all of these 64 mods, people playing this game, speedrunning this game, it has stayed in the limelight for the years and years and years that it has been out. This game is older than I am, and yet it is still very popular, and I really respect it for what it did. I respect it for how it was able to push the gaming medium forward, how it was able to innovate and create 3D environments with puzzles and fun collectibles and just ways to make it to where the actual game felt more fun than actually achieving things sometimes, because in a lot of other games, the objectives are the goal. But with Nintendo, it's about that feel. And when you control Mario in 64, yes, the camera is horrible and it is not fun to use, but actually running around as Mario feels very good. These environments are designed perfectly for his moveset, and there is so much you can do with Mario. Punching, jumping, triple jumping, ground pounding. You can do so much. You can swim up and down. You can swim everywhere. It is so great to see this series' beginnings and how it ended up evolving into what it is now and how many people it has impacted. 64 is going to go in B tier for me personally because I think there are just so many other games in this series that did such a better job at really being that new game and that was able to evolve and just be the series that it always was meant to be. But 64 being the very first one is making it so much harder for me to put it anywhere below B tier. Next up, we have Super Mario Sunshine. I love Super Mario Sunshine. I love all of these games, spoiler alert, but comparing them to each other, I'm going to have to put Super Mario Sunshine in C tier. That makes sense to me, and here's why. First of all, Mario 64 was a lot of fun to control Mario because it was very innovative. It's the first of its kind, but I think the novelty is what makes that game so much fun to play. Super Mario Sunshine does not have a lot of that novelty because it was essentially the next game in the 3D series, and they were still trying to figure out what this thing was going to be like moving forward, how they wanted to truly make 3D Mario different. And I think Sunshine did a good job of differentiating itself from 64 in so many ways. The thematic identity of having a vacation theme, being on this island, was very, very strong. And yet, Sunshine is still one of the weakest entries in the series because of how it controls, how janky it can feel, and how undeserved so many of the penalties this game will give you can feel. Super Mario 3D All-Stars, in which it includes 64, Sunshine, and Galaxy, all got an update on the Switch 2. I believe it was able to enhance some of those visuals a little bit, but mostly it just fixed a lot of those bugs and also allowed us to use the brand new GameCube controller that they released alongside the NSO expansion pass, in which they allowed GameCube games to be on that service. But now, playing Super Mario Sunshine for the first time with the GameCube controller feels so much better than I could have ever imagined. A lot of people were right about how this game feels so much better to play with the GameCube controller in mind. What they had was that pressure on the back trigger, the shoulder button, in which you would press it down, and the more you press it, the more it would actually come out of the flood pack. It is so much fun to play, and it just is an experience that is really hard to replicate on a Switch Pro controller, so I appreciated going back to this game for this video and revisiting that. It was a great job by Nintendo being able to design it for that controller and able to actually bring it to modern standards later on to where it wasn't such a big deal if you didn't have that, but still, it was very clearly designed with this controller in mind and feels very good to play with it. Even though the GameCube controller does feel very, very good to use, this is probably still the worst 3D Mario game in my opinion in which you control Mario. His feel is just off. It doesn't seem like wherever you're trying to jump is where you will land. The mechanics of how you get from place to place aren't as unique and fun as the past entry and the future entries would end up being, and a lot of these missions are just straight up infuriating. Like, I really do want to play this game so much more. I want to 100% it. I have that desire to just keep going back and back and back into all these levels. The hub world, Isle Delfino, is so much fun to play around with and just run through, and yet the levels themselves can be so unbelievably unfair and infuriating to a point where it's like arcadey, which all of these other arcade games in the past were literally designed to make you mad and be so ridiculously hard that you would continue giving it money to play over and over again. I think that design philosophy really did incorporate itself in some of the early games, in some of the early home consoles like the GameCube, like the N64, in which they were still trying to get out of that arcade mindset, because you don't have to make a game ridiculously hard for no reason anymore, because before it was to get more money. Now I bought the game and your console. Just give me a good time. Sunshine from the ground up was designed unapologetically to be a frustrating but fun experience, a Mario game that wasn't meant to feel good, but a game that was meant to make you feel like you were in his shoes, and boy, do you feel like you're in his shoes in this very difficult situation. Because if I had a flood pack and if I was running around these areas, I would not at all feel like I was going to be able to do this in the way that he does. And so it is very hard, and it is very well communicated through the controller to the player how difficult this is actually going to be, but at the same time, it really does sacrifice that player experience for what the developers decided to be a better overall mechanic. Next up, we've got Super Mario 64 DS. I talked a little bit about this earlier. A lot of these same things apply to 64 DS, but this game is very different in the sense of you can play as Mario, Luigi, Yoshi, and Wario. And a lot of people also thought you could play as Waluigi forever. And in the early internet era, in which people really didn't know how to debunk things and there weren't enough proof yet of how this thing could actually work, people believed it, and I believed it. I remember hearing about it from some of my friends and then looking it up on my big home desktop computer, a big Dell like 2000 computer. It was so old, and I remember looking at it and being like, oh my gosh, you can unlock Waluigi, and it was just a mod. And I remember being so upset because there's that fourth door with no name, and I thought it was Waluigi, and we never were able to unlock him because he simply wasn't in the game. So it was so much fun for me to play this game on the DS, to be able to have that first exposure of this game, to then be able to really appreciate it a lot later in its life cycle. 64 DS is very similar to 64, except it controls worse, and a lot of people just consider it to be inferior because it splits up a lot of the missions between the four characters. Wario is the guy that punches through those blocks. Mario is able to inflate himself and be Balloon Mario, and then I believe Luigi was the invisibility guy, and then Yoshi didn't have any powers, but he could swallow enemies with his tongue and flutter jump. I really appreciated the extra level that they added with the new King Goomba. I wish they would bring him back. He is such a cool character, but it really does feel like they took everything special about 64 and split it up, because in 64 you played as Mario and you could do all these things as Mario, and now in 64 DS you're limited. You have to go back and forth and swap between characters to do specific missions, and that can be a lot less fun. I don't think I'll get a lot of pushback from this, so I'm going to go ahead and just say Super Mario 64 DS is the only D-tier game on this list. Next up, we have a masterpiece, Super Mario Galaxy. I adored Super Mario Galaxy growing up, and I still adore Super Mario Galaxy now. One thing it does so much better than any of the other Mario games is really cement itself in terms of atmosphere. You are in space, and it really feels like you are in space, a cold, unforgiving, oxygenless space in which you are alone without anyone's help, and you have to go through these levels and defeat all of these enemies and get to the end, collect the stars to power up the Comet Observatory and get yourself to Peach. This was the first Mario game in which they decided to take the music of this game to the next level. The orchestral soundtrack was composed brilliantly, and I love every single track in this game. They keep a lot of the old flair of Mario 64 and Sunshine with those music, with that video gamey music, but also they push the boundaries of what video game music should be. I remember listening to these tracks as a kid and falling totally in love, being completely and totally encapsulated by the vibes of this atmosphere. I truly cannot believe I am starting off with the music and have yet to talk about the actual gameplay itself, because man, this was the first Mario game that truly feels amazing to play. The other ones, Super Mario 64, were novel. So sure, in that novel way, it feels good, but the camera controls, the jaggedness of the N64 graphics, it does feel a little bit less enjoyable. And if not for that novelty, if not for it being the first 3D platformer, most people probably would not agree that it feels good. Sunshine is very janky in its own way. The flood pack, all of those mechanics, it's just not fun to control. And at the end of the day, it is because of the GameCube that makes the flood pack feel even remotely good. Even with the waggle controls of the Wii, Super Mario Galaxy is when Mario began to feel amazing. And you are running around this weird gravity-based planets that have also never been done before. Most of the time, you are not running in this manner in other Mario games or even in other games, but with this weird gravity mechanic, you're able to run across these planets, and yet it still feels phenomenal. Running up to an enemy, shaking your controller, and being able to obliterate them with your spin move, it is so satisfying. You probably have less moves than ever at your disposal in terms of the 3D entries. You cannot punch anymore. You have a spin move in place of that, sure, but most of the other mechanics are gone. And they were able to do more with less, and I think that is the key here. They decided to go a little bit more back to basics in terms of his movement and make it to where the linear design was what actually led the charge. Super Mario Galaxy, with its atmosphere, with its controls, and with the amazing character development of Rosalina and the care that you have for her and Peach, and Bowser being more menacing than ever, you adore this game. You have to adore this game and all of the levels that you play in, because it takes you to so many different environments because it's in space. So you can do pretty much anything with space. You can do anything with that idea. Now, also, let me be completely and totally honest with you here, and hopefully you will see that I am not making a biased decision. Super Mario Galaxy probably has the most nostalgia for me personally, because I remember playing that as a kid, growing up, and adoring it. And yet I am still only going to put this game in A tier, not S tier, A tier, because of reasons I will get into in a little bit, but comparing them to the other games, I am just going to have to put it in A tier for now. Now I am going to explain to you why Galaxy is an A tier and not S tier. Super Mario Galaxy 2 does every single thing Galaxy does, but better, except for the story and atmosphere. Now sure, there is still an atmosphere in Galaxy 2, but even looking at the posters here, the difference between Galaxy 1 and Galaxy 2 is very stark. Galaxy is darker, it's more brooding, it has more of a cosmic feel to it. Galaxy 2 is much more bright, much more optimistic, much more bombastic, and those two really do contrast each other, and it makes a big difference. I am very nostalgic for both of these games, probably more so to Galaxy 1 than Galaxy 2, and yet I think Galaxy 2 is better than 1 because of the gameplay, and that is what we're all here for. The atmosphere and story is very much better in Galaxy 1 because of Rosalina and all of the different music that goes along with Galaxy 1, but Galaxy 2 really encapsulates everything about Galaxy 1 and makes it so much better. It really builds on top of everything in terms of gameplay. In Super Mario Galaxy 1, I will go back and replay that game, and every level I'll be like, that was it? That's the end? I remembered it being a little bit bigger when I was a kid. I remember it being a little bit more challenging when I was a kid. I go to Galaxy 2 and every level is innovative, unique, fun. Every single level feels like the best of the best. And Galaxy 1 doesn't necessarily have that same feeling to me personally. I feel like with Galaxy 1, a lot of the levels are either hit or miss. They're either way too easy and just more of a spectacle than anything, and they revolve around different power-ups that really don't feel good to use, like the spring power-up. No one really liked that level, and all of the toy levels were really interesting to go through, but they weren't as innovative as Galaxy 2 was, with the Yoshi mechanic, with all of the different power-ups in that game. The rock, where you are going and you use it to bang up against the bridge and it goes down and you bowl with it, and then the cloud mechanic in which you shake your controller and there's a cloud that spawns underneath you. It uses so many different mechanics to get you to where you want to go, and it feels better, it feels more optimized, and of course that makes perfect sense. In a lot of ways, I have always preferred sequels to their counterparts because I truly can see and understand and appreciate the design choices and the changes they make from 1 to 2. It's one of the reasons Tears of the Kingdom is so much better to me personally than Breath of the Wild, because I can see in every single way how they decided to improve the experience for the player, and I see the same thing here with Galaxy 2. They took it back to the drawing board and they knew what to build on top of, to where every single level feels bigger, grander, and better than Galaxy 1 could ever hope to have done, because at this point they had so much experience with the model, with the game. All they had to do was make more levels, and more levels did they make. You know, from the very first level up to the second level even, like you're going through several different sections, and it feels so grand. And Mario Galaxy has that grand feel, but not to the same extent. Galaxy 2 truly takes it to the next level. It shoots it up into the stratosphere, and I cannot get enough of it. So Galaxy 2 is our first S tier game. We have gone from really the bottom to the top here, except for 64. That kind of screwed things up with the B tier, but now we are going to go back down a level because Super Mario 3D Land is still a fine game, but it is always the game I feel like I have least to talk about. I did a video similar to this one a year ago doing a 3D Mario retrospective, and I really didn't want to watch that in anticipation for this, but I wanted to at least go back and see how much I talked about 3D Land because I never feel like I have any notes on this game, and I looked back and it was the shortest section in that video too. This will probably be the same, but first, I just want to talk about how bland this game is. It is such a generic Mario game. To go from 64 to Sunshine with that identity, with Galaxy and Galaxy 2 with the grand bombastic music, the orchestra, everything is huge. You're going through these massive levels and you're doing it well, and it's so amazing. And then you have 3D Land, and you're running through these blocky, grassy, desert areas that take you back to the Mario roots that I don't think needed to go back to that much. This was as a result of the nostalgia era for Nintendo, in which Miyamoto took over everything Mario related and made it less creative, took him back to the roots, made him feel better to control, made him back to what he used to be for everyone to enjoy, and it just didn't innovate. It stopped pushing the boundaries of what Mario should be and could be in the future, and what he had been in the past with Galaxy and Galaxy 2. To go from those games to this game is jarring, and I understand, right? They were playing on the 3DS here, they had to make a 3D Mario game for the 3DS, and so it has to be a little bit stripped back. It has to be less of an experience to some extent, and yet also be a fun game. And I'm not denying it's fun. No 3D Mario game is bad, but this game is just not enjoyable to me personally, which is such a weird thing for how much I personally love 3D World, but 3D Land, wow, the game doesn't even really start for me until the end of it. You have 8 worlds because of course you do. It's standard Mario, 8 worlds, and then you beat Bowser, and then you get a whole bunch of extra content, 8 extra worlds to go through with a bunch of new levels, and by the time you get there, you're almost just done with the experience, but those worlds and levels are so much better than anything the base game has to offer, and it's just frustrating that that couldn't have been the experience throughout the entirety of the game. Of course, every game has a purpose, and there has to be some challenge, something to overcome for you to want to play it. There has to be a purpose, and in 3D Land, getting to the flagpole is just not that purposeful for me personally, and I don't think it's about the flag itself like some people do. I think it's just the level design in between where you are at the beginning to the flag itself. You have to enjoy getting from one point to another, and that flagpole was reminiscent of the 2D era. The only reason they brought it back was because it was an objective that the 2D series had, so let's bring it into the 3D series to make it more accessible and more easy for people to understand. They focused on linearity more than ever, and I think that was a detriment to this game specifically. And yes, I am not afraid to admit it, I'm not a fan of Mario 3D Land, so I am going to put it at the top of D tier above Super Mario 64 DS, because I would still probably rather play this game, but I'm putting it below Sunshine because, oh my goodness, I would much rather play Sunshine than this game any day of the week. Next up, let's talk about Super Mario Odyssey. I will talk about 3D World and Bowser's Fury together, and I will rank them separately because people do get frustrated at me not ranking them separately, so I will do it for the sake of that. And also, this tier list just so happens to have both of them separate anyway, so for those people, I will talk about them in different ways and rank them differently. Super Mario Odyssey is the first game here to talk about, and where do you even begin with a game like Super Mario Odyssey? This game brought the 3D series back to what it always should have been, an open sandbox style experience in which you are collecting different collectibles rather than getting to a flagpole. In 64, it was stars. In Galaxy and Galaxy 2, it was also stars. In Sunshine, it was these sun sprites, and then in 3D Land, they moved to flagpoles, and now we're finally back here with moons. Now, a lot of people's critiques of this game was that there were too many moons and it made them feel kind of useless because collecting moons didn't do a whole lot for you except for just advancing the story and then the post-game ending to where you would finish the game and then you had to get more and more moons to get to different locations. You would get to the Mushroom Kingdom and then to the moon, dark side of the moon, and then eventually you would get to the final level in which it would challenge you, that big, long 3D Mario level that everyone is known for at the very end of the game. It is so much fun to do that, and you have to get moons to get that. So collecting all of these moons are very fun and they're very satisfying. You always are looking for them. You're always looking to stop and do whatever it takes to get a moon because they're so addicting to grab, but some people found them to be a little bit too much, and that ended up being something that they fixed in Donkey Kong Bonanza with the Odyssey team working on that game, but that is for another time. Mario Odyssey definitely did have a moon problem. I think personally it was totally amazing. I adored Odyssey with everything I had because Cappy changed the game. Cappy was able to make it to where you had more maneuvers than ever. Mario himself could triple jump, he could back jump, he could side jump, long jump. Mario could do a lot all on his own. But you add Cappy into that mix, you can triple jump, you can throw Cappy, you can dive straight into Cappy, jump up again off of him, and then dive again to get to a location. Or you could use Cappy to obviously use the capture mechanic, in which you throw him on an enemy and then you are able to possess that enemy and use their abilities to either proceed in the main storyline or use it to get some sort of moon in some way. And of course, the ending was magical, in which you threw Cappy and you captured Bowser and were able to use him at the very end with that awesome rock song that Pauline is singing. It is so amazing. And this game, wow, it brought Mario back to what he should have been this entire time. Now listen, I love Odyssey, but over the years, I am able to see more and more how it can be improved upon and how it can be better moving forward, and Donkey Kong Bonanza shows me how the next Mario game can be even better than that. They brought Mario back from the dead with this Odyssey game, because 3D Land and 3D World were not very big successes. Like 3D Land ended up selling quite a bit, 3D World didn't sell well because it was on the Wii U, but they knew they had to change. They knew they needed to go back to their roots and make a fun game. And this game was very innovative in a lot of ways with the capture mechanic and all the different worlds, but they have so much to build on top of, and that's why I was really one of those people that was hoping for a Super Mario Odyssey 2 in the same way that Galaxy 2 was able to improve upon the first installment. When I look back at Odyssey, I see an experience that is full of fun, full of things to do, things that you will spend hundreds of hours in if you let yourself get sucked into the gameplay completely. A game that is beautiful and almost perfect, but not quite there. A game that really sets the floor for what Mario should be moving forward and has no limits in what the ceiling can be moving forward. With all of that in mind, I am going to put this game right above Super Mario Galaxy in A tier and not put it in S tier, because I just can't bring myself to say I enjoy Mario Odyssey better than Galaxy 2. Now, the one thing that Odyssey does do better than Galaxy 2, I think, is obviously its movement options, its fluidity, and the graphics do look very, very nice compared to Galaxy 2. But this is where both gameplay and identity come into match here, because the theme of Super Mario Odyssey is not very consistent. It's just Mario, right? And then the cap theme, everyone's wearing hats, and that's kind of their theme. There's New Donk City, that's like the big one, and then there's Pauline. That's what people think of when they think of Odyssey. There's not a strong identity with this game because it's just kind of a bunch of everything, and I love that, don't get me wrong, but when I think of Galaxy 2, I think of space. I think of all of the amazing music and the environments that it provides, and I just don't think that Odyssey provides the same type of experience. I have not soured on Odyssey by any means, but I think I have a more realistic view of what that game actually is and what it will be moving forward. I love Odyssey. I wanted an Odyssey 2. I will replay Odyssey all the time, and yet I'm not going to sit here and say it's the best 3D Mario ever simply because it's the most recent one. I love Odyssey, but A tier is where I think it belongs. Next up, we've got Super Mario 3D World. I adore this game so much. I've probably put more hours in this game than any other 3D Mario prior to this, which is a crazy thing for me to say, but I spent so much time with this on the Wii U and then so much more time with this on the Nintendo Switch. I 100%ed the game on both platforms, and that is crazy to me because to 100% the game, you have to play as all the characters in every single level. So you have to beat every level 5 times and reach the top of the flagpole, and all of those collect all green stars and all the stamps in every level, and that is a huge monumental task, and yet I never find myself getting bored of it like I would in some of the other games. In Mario Odyssey and Galaxy 2, sometimes it feels as though I am never going to get all the stars, and that's okay. I don't necessarily want to 100% those games, I don't feel that desire, but every time I jump into 3D World, it feels just small enough, just linear enough to where even though it is a monumental task, I enjoy the bite-sized experience of every single level just enough to where I am going to get everything every time. There is something special about knowing a game more than the developers probably do themselves, because I can tell you every little crevice of every single level in this game, and just knowing that is so much fun. Like, you would think having memorized the entire game would push me away from wanting to play this game so much, and yet I always seem to find myself coming back to this game more than any of the other ones. Now, Galaxy 2 would probably be superseding that if it wasn't stuck on the Wii and Wii U, but it just is. We don't have a new modern version of that game yet, so I don't play it as much because I don't want to pull out my Wii every single time. 3D World was incredibly enhanced on the Nintendo Switch. It's so much more fun than ever because they enhanced the speed of every single character. The characters have different attributes. Peach is a floater, she has her dress, it floats. Then you have Toad, and he is the fastest. Luigi jumps the highest but is slippery, and Mario is the all-around character. And Rosalina, the unlockable character, has a spin move, and she can attack enemies. Now, the trade-off for Peach's ability, she can float in the air, but she is the slowest character of the bunch. In the Nintendo Switch version, they increased the speed of all the characters by so much to where Peach in the Switch version is faster than Toad in the original version. And who knew, man? Who knew increasing the speed of this game would add to its enjoyability this much? Now, sometimes it can feel like, oh, this game definitely wasn't designed for the speed, but it's so much fun. Who cares? Like, it is so fun to run around these levels at high speeds, trying to speed run every single time, using the cat suit and spamming it. It's so much fun. Like, this game takes everything that's wrong with 3D Land and makes it so much better. And that's why I think they need to do more sequels, more asset reusing sequels, because these games are always better when they have a second go around. The linearity that I complained about in 3D Land, the cut and dry Mario style, is improved in 3D World with the bombastic soundtrack, with all of the different movesets that you have in 3D World, with the better power-ups, and being able to use linearity to your advantage. In 3D Land, it was linear just because that's what it was going to be. It's on a handheld console and they can't do much with it anyway, so let's just make it 2D, but in 3D, right? In 3D World, they use linearity as a design limitation. And sometimes when you limit yourself, you have to go big and all out to squish every single idea from a concept out. And they did that so well. Imagine a sponge, right? Full of water and soap. If you squeeze that thing, you're getting every ounce of that sponge's potential out of there. This is what that game feels like. It feels like they have a ceiling, and yet that ceiling is being pushed up against, it's being butted against, and it is so well designed. 3D World is one of my favorites. I continue to come back to it more than any 3D Mario ever, and I think a lot of people agree with me, but it is simply not better than a lot of the other games. Objectively speaking, I may enjoy it the most, but I have to recognize it is not better in theme, it is not better in gameplay mechanics or movability sometimes. As tightly as you can turn, as sharp as it feels, as amazing as I feel playing as these characters in this game, I cannot put it above some of these other games. So I'm going to say it is at the top of B tier, above 64, but below Super Mario Galaxy. Now here we are, friends. We have Bowser's Fury, and of course, it's not its own game. I do not like it being its own game because then people will say, well, that was technically the most recent 3D Mario game. That was in 2021, so we have years to go before the next one. No, Mario Odyssey was the last 3D Mario game, but Bowser's Fury, I will give it a talk because it deserves a talk. Bowser's Fury is such an odd entry because it came out of nowhere. On the 35th anniversary for Mario, we got 3D World plus Bowser's Fury for the Nintendo Switch, and I couldn't have been more surprised at that addition. I feel like Nintendo really wanted to include something to make this 35th anniversary feel even more special, but at the same time, I think that 3D Mario team, half of them split off and they did Donkey Kong Bonanza, and the other half went to the drawing board right after Odyssey to consider what is the next Mario going to look like. In the meantime, they did a lot of storyboards, they did Bowser's Fury, they developed that game as kind of a baseline for what the next one could be. They experimented with ideas that they could incorporate into that game, and I just don't know the purpose of this experience. Because it's not as though they just added on to 3D World and included more content. This is an entirely different mode in which you go into a brand new world and you have 100 cat shines to collect. And it's a whole story, it's its own thing. And yet it is completely and totally different from 3D World. The style, the way you are running around, the objectives, it's all different. It's more like what the sandbox 3D Mario style has been. It's open, but yet linear because you're not going from one place to another however you like. You are unlocking worlds one at a time. You're unlocking areas to go to. So it is just false to call this game an open world Mario, and people have been saying it points to that direction, and I really don't think it will, nor do I think anyone should want that to be the direction this series goes in. Breath of the Wild should not be the model for Mario, but maybe it will be. Maybe they decided they wanted to go somewhere completely different, but I honestly don't know why they would want to do that. Mario has been the innovator forever. People have always copied him. They have always followed suit from his ideas, from his level designs, from everything that he does. And yet Bowser's Fury takes it into a different direction. As far as what it means for the future of Mario, we will have plenty of time to speculate that, but in terms of the Bowser's Fury experience itself, you have Bowser in the middle of the map. He is in this big black shell of his, and he is ginormous, bigger than we've ever seen him be before. He is in the middle of the map, and he's swirling around, and he is constantly there. His presence is overwhelming, and as you go from island to island, collecting all of your cat sprites, you are always in the back of your head wondering, when is he going to come out and attack me? When am I going to have to take cover or use his fire to my advantage? There is something really fun and novel about the idea of running around knowing at any second your time will come. You have to prepare and be ready because he is coming whether you like it or not, and there's nowhere to hide. This is the kind of experience that I could see them storyboarding somewhere and thinking, this could never work as a full game, but in this small pack-in experience, we can absolutely make it this own thing. 3D World's engine was the perfect example of how they could use old assets to bring in new ideas. They didn't at all do anything what 3D World is like, except for using some of the power-ups and the engine of 3D World. They created different environments with that engine and made a completely different experience with it, and I think that's what they need to do more of, and I am so glad that this game exists, and yet it is so odd to me that it does. Bowser's Fury has a lot of things going for it. I love that it is semi-linear, but also at the same time more sandboxy than normal. You can go around these different areas, and they're not as big as I would hope, they're not as intricate as I would hope, but it is still a very fun experience. This game is a lot more like Sunshine than anything to me in the sense of it is fun to control, sure, but it's not very dynamic. It's not all-encompassing as some of these other games are. It doesn't go super deep into what it could be. It doesn't tap into that full potential, and people kind of act as though it is the perfect example of what Mario should be. And if there was a full game like this, I guarantee you it would be one of the most divisive Mario games of all time, and I am glad it is not its own thing. I sound like I hate Bowser's Fury. I truly do not, but I think it has been overhyped, and a lot of people have been talking about it as if it is the future of Mario, and it just simply is not to me. It should not be. Bowser's Fury is a fun experience that I am going to put at the top of C tier. I know a lot of people are going to feel some type of way about that, but I just can't justify the experience as anything more than a top of C. 64 has a stronger identity, it does way more things well, and I think Bowser's Fury is only really trying to be what it is, a bite-sized, novel experience based off of a singular gimmick that could never ever be expanded into its own big game. And yet people talk about it as if it is its own big game, so in response to that, I am kind of lowering my expectations on how I feel about this game and lowering my opinion of it in some sense, because if I really look at all of these games, Bowser's Fury is probably one of the least ones I would consider getting rid of. Like, if I had to look at Mario Galaxy 2, Mario Odyssey, Galaxy, and say, you know what, you're eliminating one of these games forever off the map, Bowser's Fury would be close to that list. So, there is my list and my rankings of every single 3D Mario game. I'm sure y'all are going to feel some type of way about it, so let me know down in the comments what your thoughts are. Am I crazy? What's your favorite Mario game? If you would have changed my rankings, what would that have been like to you? Rank all of them in the comments for me. Make sure you like and subscribe to today's video as well if you enjoyed. Click that notification bell to know exactly when I upload videos just like this, and please consider joining my membership program to get early access to all of my videos and a bunch of other cool perks. I truly appreciate the support of the channel, and it really helps me grow. Make sure you click on the left side of your screen if you want to see my previous video talking about the retrospective of all of these games. I'll have to go back and see if my opinions changed on any of these since last year, and click on the right side of your video to see the playlist of all of my rankings videos. Thank you so much for watching to the end. Have a phenomenal day. This has been Ray's Nintendo Talk. I have been Ray, and I will see you all in the next video.